topics. First, integration tests in general, and the second one is the use of device farms for integration tests. Do I need to explain why we use integration test, or why do we need integration test?
You can say one or two words. I guess it's clear, but maybe just
Yeah.
to give a context.
Yeah, the context is we have all kinds of tests, the unit tests and many other names, and basically tests are here to help us. Even if this is simply last guardian dog, if you will, to check that things basically are working. Even getting affirmation that the app is starting and loading is already better than having nothing. So, and the downside of the integration test are usually the slowness of this, the fragility, and also the buggy interaction with the devices, since it's running the real app on the device and trying to interact with it. Which leads us to the next thing, which is device farms. I don't think I need to explain to anyone why we need device farms or why we need to test on multiple devices in Android. There are thousands of devices out there, and it is physically impossible to test on your deck even more than one or two devices, or even check the 10 top popular devices right now. It's very difficult. So we have also the various Android versions which are pain in the neck. What the device farms give you, which are exist in various providers, in Xamarin, in Test Object, Amazon, Google, etc., is having locked device locked to a certain version. Yes, for example, my LG G3 is already running Android 6.0, but you can still find devices out there which are running Android 4.4, and it's really nice to have all the range, because things like this exist. All kinds of gray imports or devices smuggled for different places, and you can never be sure on which Android is running where on certain device. And the fact that you checked on your local device is very nice, but you can have a variant in another place, in another country, that is not working. So this is one example of using. We'll start with Cucumber or Calabash. Okay. Calabash is basically working. It's written in Ruby. It uses compiled APK. You don't need to recompile anything. Just take some release APK of your application. This is some boilerplate code, and then you have the test, which looks like this. These are the Cucumber steps. Basically, it is a division of features, scenario, and then you have each line is actually a test that runs. There is some server that installs a little app, little server on, will connect to the device, and then the actual tests are found here. It's a little bit weird syntax, but yeah, you can see. Basically, waiting for the app to start. Then there are various queries to find elements. For example, we wait for an element which has the app's title. In this case, this is an element called React Text Review. I knew what to search using the UI automator, but you can have various queries. I check for a width for some element. and also some inside element with another title. This is a very simple test that I did about 6 months ago. And this basically can run on your devices connected to your computer, or you can use Calabash is actually developed by Xamarin, and they also the goal is to lure you into using their own device farm, which is shown very nicely here. In this example, I've uploaded the APK and also the test themselves, and they're running on then the test on a series of devices I selected in some configuration. And you can see this is actually, this looks very nice. You can see the steps which must match exactly the steps written, and given the app is launched, this is actually creates automatically a screenshot whenever each step is complete. So here we have the trigger of the device's launch, and the next step is we see if there's an element with the title. So like you can see, just a minute. Let's get a close up. Yeah, each and every screenshot of a real device has the title, which looks very nice. You can already see that each phone is rendering things more slowly or more quickly. And again, the next step, if we see something in full width, and then we search also for the first item to check if it has the same title. Yeah, I know this looks simplistic, but it actually checks that first our app is up and running, and secondly, it renders something. In this case, it renders something which calls the YouTube API. So we are checking actually real data, and real data is coming back, and it is rendering into proper item, proper cell. And you can see also the overview when some of the devices fail, running time, and okay, that's Calabash. Any questions, clarifications?
Apparently not.
Hey?
Apparently not. Well, I have a you. I have a small question actually. Do you write the test once, or you write it for each platform? The test scenarios.
In this case of Calabash, I think, no, I have to write the test twice, because starting from Xcode 8 and iOS 10, the change, Apple changed the way you can query things. You cannot use the old Automator, you can only use XUI test, so we got to have different queries. Yeah, that's usually how it is.
How much time it takes? Also, oh, sorry. Finish.
Oh, wow. Yes.
How much?
Yo cogí uno temprano, pero entrando, me acordé que tenía 1000.
Yes, sir.
It's someone. So,
De todas formas, me voy a
do
quedar.
you run?
Quiero terminar el meeting ese ahorita.
I think it's Pablo, no?
Sí, para terminar la
Talking in
entrevista aquí,
Spanish.
agüea que me
Which color one?
Sí, parece. Dale, nos vemos,
1 second, I cannot hear anything. Okay, so my question is, do you run the test every time you like push codes? And how long does it take you to run, like how much time it takes to run this test? Because, you know, to run it on actual devices, would be a little bit painful.
We are not using Calabash. I will soon show the Appium thing you are using actually.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, we are jumping it a bit.
So continue.
Upload.
You can continue with what you were saying.
But I can answer the question. The upload of the APK takes 6 seconds, and the test itself, which is very similar, free test, is maximum 2 minutes.
Okay.
Not too bad, but that's what we have.
And
so,
I have a question, please.
Yes.
Thank you. How much time it takes you to learn all the language? How to write a test?
Oh, it's not too difficult. I mean, that's the downside of it. If you use Calabash, it has the very weird syntax of the cucumber tests. As you can see, this is this. They had a nice idea, but it is a bit strange. You see, this is very nice, and this is actually pattern matching. I mean, you can change if you want to have another text here, yeah. But then, in order this to work, you have to use some weird pattern matching and search the queries. This is not the ideal. I will show now the other thing, which is the platform we use actually in our Circle CI test. This is the Appium. This works in the same way. Use some APK, release APK, and start a server, and then you can just run on the device or the emulator. Again, some boilerplate of keys, IDs, platform device name, where the APK is found out, etc. So the way we use it in Appium, these are the tests. They are written in RSpec in Ruby, which is already, and this is the big advantage, upside, sorry, above the Calabash test, that you can use a variety of test frameworks, and you are not limited only to Ruby. You can use Python, Java, JavaScript, all the decent languages are covered. And then here you have the describe, context, things if you need to do before, and then you have the various tests. For example, we make sure that some element is around. Accessibility ID is, I think it's test ID in Android, or I mean, you can find with a NextPath, or you can find with various strategies. And again, check that the element is not nil, or the screen extremes are echoes to the width. I mean, for example, that something was rendered and the element is found inside an element. Inside the video list, we have some item which has this title. It is very, very similar. In Circle CI, let's see if you have this. We have the build Android. We have upload Android, which uploads this to the other service, the of testobject.com, and test Android, which is actually running the same file you saw earlier. It's just running aspect of this aspect. Here you can see the same steps, dozens of builds, installs, etc. Since it is React Native. Build the APK, upload it to test object, and then the test. And here's the thing. The big difference between Appium and the others is that the server, which does the queries on the application, doesn't have to be on the same machine. For example, Here you see when we are using the local server for something for device connected, we use some localhost. And here, when running under CircleCI, we're using a server of testobject.com, which is the service. So this is an example of a test we uploaded there, and this gives us the capability of running the test from CircleCI on a device that exists somewhere in Germany in test object. Okay, so you get the same thing here. You get screenshots, and you get even a video of application running. Oops, sorry. Yeah, everything good. And the best thing, when you have problems with the application, you get the device log, and you get the specific the Appium log if well, if there's any problem with configurations. This takes us about between 1.5 minutes and 2 minutes to combine for 2 tests, which we already see it is quite heavy, but it helps us a lot. And particularly in this case, I always run the test on another device. They have about 100 Android devices which are relevant. I'm not talking about Android 2.3 devices, but here, for example, HTC Desire, and they also have tablets. It's running randomly another device anytime. The reason we chose Appium use test object is because it works also for iOS in a very similar way. We didn't check device farms which were Android only because of that, but there are a few other players in this area like Amazon and Google. That's it.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
My first one is, how much time did it take you to set up the environment? Because I have a bad experience with Appium from a couple of years ago, but I assume that it's much better now. But how much time is to set up and configure the environment of Appium and everything to work, like the initial setup?
To work locally?
To work locally and then connect it, like to have a running test environment that is working, basically.
I don't know. I did so many iterations on this. It's not too bad, but you need to be clever. For example, if you want to have the device which is connected right now, no matter which one, then use some clever things. But as you can see, this is all the boilerplate there is actually. I mean, especially if you use the device farm, that's all you need. There could be some problem with versions, especially Xcode. I mean, the Apple is very fragile, and they took them almost half a year to get over the Xcode 8 changes. Android is still working quite flawlessly, I should say. Yeah, nothing special in here. You can also, yes, at least in Android it was quite easy for me. I mean, you need to get out of Android Studio and do a little bash, but nothing aside that.
Okay, now the tough one.
Yes.
Why should I use this? We are now in the Android Tech Talk, so let's assume that I don't care about iOS for a minute.
Yeah, yes, that's one assumption also.
what is the benefit of doing that over using the, I asked it, I think last week, I was not sure that I got an answer, but why should I choose this framework over choosing the native Android tools, which are not bad at the moment? So I'm talking about Espresso, and I'm talking about the test recorder, which is using Espresso, and it's kind of just buttons, click buttons, and you basically get its flow. So why should I choose this and not the native tools? Let's say.
Oh, you don't. I mean, you don't have to. You can use
What
Espresso and
happened?
Appium.
They told the people out?
Excuse me.
Someone in the background.
Yeah.
Someone.
Again, for us, we try to consolidate the test so that a project so complex, which has both React Native and JavaScript and Xcode and Objective-C and Java, well, we have some common ground. At least the tests are written in Ruby, especially with Neo, which is something we feel familiar in, and it's some, I don't know, the tests feels like at home with this language. There's absolutely no problem using Espresso or Appium. I just didn't have the time to check, but as you can see, test object support this, and also other devices, the device farm test. So go ahead.
But a part of this a part of the language, which I agree that it depends on, well, here in the Android, I think that we will be more comfortable with writing Java code rather than an Android code rather than Ruby code. Not me personally, but in general. But there are any other benefits apart of that, of using Calabash or Appium in your case, that you think about?
Oh, yeah.
Since I couldn't compare, I cannot really answer.
Okay.
I mean, it's very different if you focus on Android only. Then you have much wider search of tools. But still, many things at least in Android that I saw that they only concentrate on working with emulators. And whenever the moment you step up higher and you really want to search test on real devices, then you don't have so many players in the field. And Appium is the biggest one, actually.
Cool. That answers my question. Well, not really, because I don't really know what we would choose now, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But
don't choose before the testing.
yeah, of course. No, I think that all the device farms are supporting most of these things. So it's just
I'm pretty sure that Espresso is accepted anyway. I mean, the life in Android is much easier. I must say.
Yeah, I agree. But that was my question. Maybe someone else has other questions. Seems like no. Cool. So thank you, Shimon. Thank you very much, and hope you will join our meetings every week.
I try to.
Cool. So what I would just want to do now is to present two new joiners, or 1.5 new. So for the Zap team, James joined. James, you want to say just hi and a couple of words, something?
Yeah, hey guys, it's an absolute pleasure to join the team, and appreciate the warm welcomes.
Welcome aboard, James.
Welcome.
And also Guy Tsarfati, which joined us after a long, came back after a long journey. which will be
2.5
joining
years
the,
of absence.
yeah,
The
along
European
the
team,
maternity
EU
leave.
team. Yeah, you can say that. Yeah,
So tell us some
I'm now
words.
returning. Yeah, I first joined Applicaster in 2002. Worked here for 2.5 years, and then moved on to another company, only to return back after additional 2.5 years. It doesn't mean that I'm going to stay here for 2.5 years, if anybody thought. But yeah, so I'm joining the EU team as a lead Android developer and generally a tech lead. I'll be involved in other stuff other than Android. That's it. Very happy to be here. I see that there is a lot of great things that have been done while I was gone. And there's still a lot more great things to do. So I'm looking forward to that.
Cool. We're ahead of time, so and we're not a lot of people, but if anyone wants to do like a short sync between us and explain what they are working on, maybe Elad, you can mention what's happening with the default plugins. It would be nice.
Sure, I can start. Basically, all the analytics providers move to build plugins instead of the SDK, and remove the SDK. And I can't speak that way. And create plugin instead of being the SDK. And in the Zap section of the plugins, from now on, every time you create a new app, it will add you defaultly the Mix panel and Google Analytics. So, by the way, also in iOS. So, it's going to be in the default. That's it, I think. I want to mention that everybody here?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
All right, great. So basically, I want to mention that I tried to all the plugins. It seems to me that they compile the SDK. The SDK is dependency as compile and not as provide. So meaning that all our plugins, or all the plugins that I saw in Android, they compile and set the SDK level inside with the plugin itself. So I think it's a bad practice, and I recommend to everybody using the SDK level as provide. More than that, I didn't see any unit testing in the plugins, so I think we should add few. And that's it.
I agree with both comments, and I also want to be a little bit more, I think, strict. I'm not sure that plugin should have the SDK as a dependency at all. I don't see the benefit of having like this circular dependency, basically, because what we have is we have.
Why is it configured this way in the first place?
Why is what?
Why is it configured this way in the first place?
What do you mean? What is configured?
Why?
Why the plugins do they need the SDK in the first
I
place?
don't know. It depends on the plugin. This is what I'm saying, that I don't understand why there is a need to be dependent on the SDK. The plugin should be like a standalone feature.
Exactly.
That should not rely on the SDK. Look, I cannot follow every plugin that is created, but basically, I don't think that should be any relation between the SDK and the plugin at all.
I give you one comment about that and explain you why I think everybody create the dependency on top of the SDK. Basically, because when you initialize the plugin in the SDK, you must to say which kind of object is this. So what is the contract? So until now, all the contract is in the SDK, and this is and people inherited or implement the plugin according to the contract. Basically, we can move it to other dependency, other repository, and create over there the contract, and people use there. More than that,
Sorry, what do you mean by product?
Excuse me?
No, please go on. Sorry. Please go on. I'll ask later.
I will explain. I will explain again. When you initialize the plugin in the SDK, you must understand which kind of object it is. So which kind of contract is implemented. So all the plugins that we initialize must to have the contract class or interface. So and using and when they're using it and using a method, then must to understand which is the method the plugin implemented. So basically, all the contract or the interfaces set on the SDK, and in the plugin you inherited or implement, if it's an abstract class or interface, it depends, but you implement or inherited from those contracts and implement them. So basically, this is the reason from the first place that people depends on the SDK, put the SDK dependency. There is one more thing that a lot of time people like to use in feature and in the SDK. And using a method or mechanism that utils there is in the SDK. I completely agree there is a different architecture that's going to be better. I'm completely agree with you, guys, but this is the reason for the first place that people using the SDK as dependency.
Yeah, so maybe we should get outside of the scope of the tech talk and have a either the next session or there has to be a guideline for writing plugins. I mean, I'm not very familiar with the plugin infrastructure at the moment. I'm getting into it in the next couple of days. But in general, it seems to me like it is more of something that is done out of convenience rather than real necessity. This is something that needs to be addressed. You know, you can create a plugin framework. I'm not sure what these contracts that you're talking about are, but it seems to me like they were put in the SDK because they had to be common to many projects. But
exactly.
I don't think that the SDK, you need to, basically what I imagine is that plugins can be created by external development companies that can offer plugins to our framework, and they don't even have to know what the Applicaster SDK is. So it's really
probably you're right. And I think this point you raise and Ran raised, it's a good point.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's not only that we're using compile and provide, the very fact that we are actually using the SDK within the plugins is something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's the plugin should be completely decoupled from the SDK. We shouldn't inherit things that are irrelevant. If it's a util function, you can use either write it or use it, but there shouldn't be a big dependency between it. And if we want to add some sort of a dependency, maybe we need to think about creating a third repository that is connecting the thing.
A plugin framework.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
The SDK and both nodes, but for sure shouldn't be any conflicts when using plugins and compiling it in our apps. And this is more there.
And I have another suggestion that if we're already speaking about it later, there is one more point that I think we should raise in this discussion. It's about the testing, because if people add testing in the plugin, I don't think there is a lot of use of it, because it's running only when you using the plugin or changing the repository himself, and sometimes not. I think this unit testing should sit in one repository that all our plugins connected to it, and every time you change something on the SDK or in specific repository of the plugins, this test should run. And in that way, all our tests are going to be meaningful.
But then it's not a unit test. It's an integration test. When you're
Yeah, it's
doing
integration.
it's something different, and it's supposed to test other stuff. When you're what I'm saying is when you're
I
writing
agree.
code, when
Test.
you write a code, it should be tested. So if you write a plugin, you should make sure that you cover it by tests. If
Yes,
afterwards you want
exactly.
to add integration test, it should sit it should be done as an integration test with frameworks like what Shimon showed us, or like even a non-UI integration test. But it's completely not related to the fact that the plugins that are written should be covered by tests.
Yes, but
Yeah, I
a
understand.
lot of my point is that our plugin is aligned for now on the methods on the SDK, and those methods is changing, and I think that they're changing without testing the plugin integration test or the plugin test. It should not be that way. I mean, every time that I'm changing something on the SDK, it's going to be a good idea, and before I'm able to merge it, the CI will run other tests that related to the plugin, and then test it and verify that what I did on the SDK don't broke something else in some other places.
It's in general, I agree, but it's super complicated. Think about it. Tomorrow, we have third parties that we have 50 new plugins on our SDK. So what
Mm-hmm.
like not on our SDK, like on for Zap, we have now 50 external plugins. How
Mm-hmm.
how can we test it on our SDK?
For
We could,
example, there is, I will tell you, for example, there is one repository that include all the testing, and every time that you write an integration test or test you're gonna put it over there with a dependency of test compile or something like that, and every time the Circle CI gonna run for the SDK, it's gonna run those tests also, and this is one way. There are a few
it's a
ways that we can
possibility. I
think
think
about it.
it's a bit hard to maintain, but it's
Yes,
something.
but this is the only way that we can control all the contracts that we supply, and make sure that nothing is really broke. And when we're changing something on the SDK, we can test all the plugins. And basically, right now, you can do something in the SDK without know that something else is broke, and it's happening. So I think this is something that we should discuss on it also.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Anyone else wants to say something? What they do or what they work on now? Maybe Merav? Maybe he's not here. Um, okay, oh, she's
I'm
here.
here.
Cool.
Yeah, it took me a while to find the unmute. Well, basically, I'm working on ProSieben and a few features for them, but mainly having a lot of troubles with new bugs that are presenting every time I pull a new commit for the SDK, for the generic SDK. It's really slowing me down at the moment, so we can't really talk about the new features I'm doing because I'm not really doing them, I'm just fighting off bugs and bugs and bugs.
Can you give an example?
Yeah. So there's the new screen type feature. that basically it started off with the UI builder, but now they've added it to not all the components that are built using the UI builder. I mean, every component can use it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
From the CMS, but after someone, I don't know who, added the screen type to the generic fragment util, and added the ability to use the screen type as a way of getting the metadata, the tab swipe suddenly crashed. And I had to waste, I don't know, 2 hours on finding out why. There are a lot of those bugs that just slowing me down again and again, and it's just insane.
What is the solution that you suggest?
I'm actually working on it now. I talked to Elad Kriti.
No, not the solution for the screen type. What is the solution for this not to happen?
Good question. I don't know because there isn't really a solution, because we all work on like different levels. I mean, I do something and I don't know what other people are doing, or I don't really know in depth. I don't know their code. I don't know what I'm doing will affect anyone else's code. I mean, there's no way of knowing unless I don't know, test all components. Maybe have like a, I don't know, test app that has all the components in it. All screen types, all the components.
So basically, Mirav, what you're saying is that the thing that got broken was in a component that was not used specifically by the person who modified the code?
Yeah.
I see.
What was your offer?
So I don't know.
That's a tough question.
Okay, so basically
automation should
Yeah.
Automation should solve it, but this is a long-term solution. We need to come up with a short-term solution to make sure that within the process these things don't happen.
I think that there is no short-term solution. That's the problem. I think that I'm seriously, I'm trying to say it for years, but maybe now Tzarfati will push for it also, will help me. But every time that you think that you don't have time, talking about us, every time that we think that we don't have time, and then we don't write tests, we pay 10 times the time of what we think that we will spend on writing these tests. If it's UI testing, unit testing, and whatever. And I think that maybe after each one of us spend hours on fixing bugs of others that was caused by a regression, it should be much clearer to us that we have to cover everything that we do. We have to write a test to cover it. The only thing that I didn't do is to beg, but other than that, I tried everything, and in the end of the day, it's the money that the company spent. The fact that Meirav is not productive, not because of her, it's a loss of money.
Yes,
it's not money out of pocket, but it's 100% loss of money. So again, I don't think that once you will add the unit testing and integration test is the solution for everything, but I think that it's a good start to make sure that we don't have regressions. And Shimon can maybe maybe can justify what I say or contradict, but I think and nothing is 100% hermetic, if I can say it in English. But it will add a big defense layer. And for example, to create one app just that has all the components for it. The problem of creating like an app that is running all this, it means that someone need to maintain it, that it's not automatic. The flow that should be tested in the normal flow of the deployment. So every time that you, it's like it's a process. But again, we started talking about 2 years ago. We could have been in a different place now after 2 years. So 2 years is long term. And if you start now writing the things in a good way and testing it, also we can use tools like the test recorder or Calabash or Appium or whatever it is. But if we had only one test that is running an app that has a tab swipe and checking if the tab swipe is there, the app would crash, probably, no, Merav, or something like that. What the bug that is happening to you, or will
That's
not
correct.
appear. So I think that in this specific case, it's super easy to add a test that will find out that this doesn't work. So a
Yeah.
part of asking and maybe make every one of us understand that the fact that we don't spend time on doing this test, we pay 10 times more in time and money afterwards, and the complaints of the customers if it's in production, etc., etc.
Yeah, the idea, Ron, the idea is clear. The implementation, we can discuss it on another level. It might be that we still need to use some common app that everybody will have to be committed to. Just as a general case, if the person that installed the code would have tests on ProSieben,
No, but we have this common app, Sarfati. We have this common app on Zap Android. There is a .env file which has parameters that this is our common app. So when you run the build on Circle, on master or on any branch, it runs the app. It builds the app. So a part of building the app, we need to run the automation test. It's there. It's just to add it. It's nothing like we have the base. The base exists. There is no setup to run it on device. And again, doesn't matter which framework we use, but something need to indicate, and the build should fail. Another thing that we need to make sure that we really making sure that we are not failing the build. This is another thing that sometimes I see that the fact that our modules has failing build is like doesn't matter to people, and it should.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is one thing.
Obviously.
So in each territory, in each place, this thing should be promoted. I cannot say it again. It's like I'm trying to say it years already. So this is one thing. I want to mention two things that I'm now looking into it. The first thing, the bug in the script that runs prepare workspace that did not add the crossmates dependency. So I have an open pull request if someone can take a look, and it should fix it. The second thing is basically two more things. The second thing is if you see that you're running a script that doesn't work, don't ignore it. Raise a flag. If you're not able to solve it yourself, raise a flag in the Android channel and mention why it fails, and not try to like hack the way to solve it locally, but try to make everyone exposed to the problem, and we will do a joint effort to solve it. Because all this automatic script, it's just more productive. That's the second. And the third thing, I'm now trying to deep dive into changing the building tool that you are using, which is Gradle, which is super slow. And I know that it's holding everyone back every time that you are doing a build. So I hope that I will start playing with it, and I hope that I will have something to mention. But if anyone has free time also to use, basically there is a tool of Facebook that is called Buck, and if anyone is familiar with or want to play with it, I'm sure that it might be a solution to help our productivity. So that's another thing to put in our minds.
Yeah, I'm currently also dealing with this, but on another aspect. I'm trying to understand, as part of my, getting to know the environment, trying to understand what is wrong with the current Gradle configuration. Because even though Gradle is a lot slower than the solution that you saw back in the other one by Google, I don't remember its name.
Basil.
It still takes way too long, and it seems like something in the configuration can be tweaked, maybe secret dependencies or general dependencies or the way the SDK itself is built. So I'm taking a look to understand the problem better, and you're going for a possible one of the possible solutions, which is actually replacing Gradle. And it might be that this is actually the right solution. So you can, if you have time, you can go ahead and look at it. But for the time being, I'm trying to understand the problem better, because I do see that it takes more than 15 minutes to build the workspace from scratch. And it's a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, Gradle has some big pitfalls that you will not be able to optimize, like the fact that if there is no action, it still takes time to build after the build was successfully. So this you will not be able to solve.
Yeah.
Cool.
Ron, I can add the last thing, if we have the time for this.
Yeah.
Yes, one of the things that which helped greatly at reducing, improving the time and the test is actually configuring the tests so they work flawlessly locally also. For example, I have some makefile with a bunch of scripts hacked together, which whatever devices are connected right now to my computer, I can run the test on them with one call. And we don't have to wait for Circle CI to have some kind of integration test or just sanity tests while we go to make some coffee. Okay, just saying, if we don't want to start integrating the Circle CI, because these are really very long tests. You can say it takes as an average 30 seconds each. Yeah, so you even have something locally which everyone can run, and then we can find, okay, at least you get an exception and we can see where it is. This is already a good starting point before even going to continuous integration.
I agree completely. Cool. Cool. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone. And have a nice rest of the week. And thank you, Shimon, for the presentation. It's all recorded, so I will publish it later on the YouTube channel. And I will post them.
Great, thanks.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.